Hey everyone, welcome back to Tactical Magic. This is Molly Mandelberg, your host, and I have the pleasure today of interviewing someone who has literally known me since the day I was born, which doesn't happen all the time on this show. I've got my Aunt Wendy here, aka Wendela Whitcomb Marsh, and before we dive in, I just want to say Wendy is a huge inspiration. She has built a beautiful business and made an amazing life for herself as an author, as a leader. And I'm really excited and grateful that I get to share her magic with you here on the show today. And she is also an autism expert. So we're going to be talking about some neurodivergency today and what to be paying attention to, but hang tight, we'll be right back.
It's not just about mastering technology. It's not just about brand or messaging. It's not just about making more money. It's about showing up in a big way so your people can find you. This is about bringing your most wild and authentic self into the hustle and grind. Welcome to Tactical Magic, a business strategies podcast for the warrior goddess entrepreneur.
Awesome. So Wendela Whitcomb Marsh is an award-winning author and the CEO of Adult Autism Assessment and Services. Her books include Recognizing Autism in Women and Girls and the upcoming series Adulting While Autistic. She finds joy in helping people discover that they were never broken or failing at life. In truth, they were surviving and even thriving as neurodivergent people living in a neuro-majority world. The realization that they were autistic all along opens doors for growth, acceptance, and a whole new life of understanding who they are. Welcome to the show, Wendy.
Hi, it's great to see you, Molly.
So tell us a little bit about how you found yourself doing the work that you're doing now. So, we have entrepreneurs or hopeful entrepreneurs, side hustlers sometimes on this listening to this show. And I think it's important that we highlight sometimes how meandering our paths can be and how we can come to new trajectories on that path. So what was it like finding yourself now the CEO of Adult Autism Assessment and Services? And what did you do before on your way there?
Okay, good question, because I think my path might be different from most people's, which includes for 40 years, I worked for someone else. I worked for the school systems and I never even dreamed of becoming an entrepreneur. It wasn't something that was in my imagination. When I took early retirement, I thought I would put her around and maybe write a book. And then as it turned out, I've written now 8 books. One of them just came out the day before yesterday. There it is. Dating While Autistic is part of the Adulting While Autistic series. So I loved writing books. And then I started seeing a few private clients, just one-on-one. And it turned out that the thing that, I could do counseling, but the thing that I was better at, because I'm not that good of a counselor, but I was really good at the assessment piece. I'd been doing assessment with children forever. So I found that I really enjoyed assessing adults for autism. It's so hard for adults, especially women, to get a proper diagnosis. And it meant so much to them. It really enriched their lives to know, oh, I was autistic all along, I'm fine. Many of the women that I've worked with, or at least a handful of them, I don't know the number, but many of them are entrepreneurs. And I understand why that is, because people with autism often do not work well for a boss. If there's a boss that's not as smart as they are, they're not going to play the game and, act like the boss knows what they're talking about. And they get in trouble by speaking their mind and their heart. Whereas when you're an entrepreneur, you get to speak your mind and your heart because you're the boss of it. So just by word of mouth, I got more and more clients and found that I was more and more busy. And about the time of the pandemic, when we all went to telehealth instead of, driving to a place and seeing a human face to face, then it opened it up for me to see people across the country because my certification is international rather than state licensed. Mm-hmm. But the joy for me in this last year, since March, I got the idea. And starting in August, I started hiring people excuse me, allergies. So I now have like 10 part-time W-2 employees. 7 of them are doing the assessments and also counseling and life coaching. And what I love about them, not just because I like them, because I hired them on purpose because I liked them, but many of them are themselves neurodivergent. They might have autism or ADHD, or in some cases, both. And both, there's 2 sides of why I love hiring autistic people or neurodivergent people. Part of it is they really know this population. They really have a heart for listening and understanding. And the other part is many of them have struggled to find employment that they can be comfortable in, where they don't feel like they have to mask and pretend to be someone they're not. So that's kind of a long answer to your question, but I got around to it.
But a beautiful story of, finding that after a whole career of working for other people, that you actually had more that you wanted to contribute and offer the world, and you wrote 8 books about what you're passionate about, that you actually like show up to do the work and support those people. In the meantime, creating this beautiful culture within your business that supports more of those same people to have a gig that they love, where they can really be themselves. And I think that's one of the really powerful parts about not necessarily getting a diagnosis, but about honoring and acknowledging like the way you specifically operate, and finding places that support that rather than make you feel like you have to be something else. And I think, yes, of course, with neurodivergency, it's like a more blatant difference sometimes than whatever the normies are. But everybody has a place where I think we're masking, or where we're like pretending we aren't as big and magical as we truly are, or we think we need to shut that down to make sense to other people. So I think overall, that's just a really great message to highlight too, is there are places where you can be all of you, where you can be your exact self and discover more of who you truly are. And it's worth finding those places so you feel self-expressed, so you feel fulfilled, so you feel seen for who you really truly are. So I think that's really just a great reminder. Don't give up until you find spaces where you can be you.
Exactly. Do not give up. And as an entrepreneur, I think people have that ability to just be themselves, because they're the boss. You created your empire. You are the boss of it, and it's so uniquely you. I really admire all the work that you've done and all the people that you've helped to become their true selves. So
there's still often so much resistance to work through, of course, because this reality has told us, you need to be confident, but then I don't feel confident. So then I have to pretend that I'm confident. It's like, no, show up as your shaky boots self sometimes. That's okay. But yeah, it takes a lot of permission, both giving ourselves permission and like finding safe places that make us feel that permission, so that we can claim, own, and acknowledge those parts of ourselves and move forward from that place. But so talking about autism and neurodivergency, what are some good indicators that somebody might want to go and find out? Like, I've felt a little different my whole life, or, I know I just don't quite function the same way that some people I know function. Like, what are some good indicators to start looking at? Is it time for me to get assessed for autism?
Oh, that's a good question. One is, now I'm neurotypical. I was married for 27 years to an autistic man. I have 2 autistic kids, but I'm neurotypical. So I never think about eye contact, for instance. I never even give it a thought. But many people with autism do think about it. In their mind, they're going, which eye do I look at? Is it okay if I just look at the eyebrow? Because I don't like to look at the eyes. Now, I should look away for a while, but then how many seconds before I look back? Counting seconds in their head. When do I look? When do I look away? At the same time as they're trying to follow the conversation. A lot of attention on eye contact. Attention on which facial expression do I put on. Let me practice a facial expression in the mirror because I'm not sure how that works. The nonverbal communication is hard for people with autism. So many of them work a lot harder. They find themselves misunderstood. One woman I was talking to the other day, wonderful woman of a huge heart, very compassionate and caring. And people were always calling her, let me say, a witch. They thought she was witchy, and she wasn't. But when she got her diagnosis and started learning more about her autism and how it affects her, she learned she does not know how to make a sad facial expression. It's not in her repertoire. When she is sad, she looks angry and witchy.
Mm.
And so all of her life, she's been misunderstood. But now, not so much. She's able to say to her now grown kids, I am really sad right now. I'm not angry. This is my face. And people that she cares about understand her, and they get her now.
Yeah.
So nonverbal type things, struggling and putting a lot of thought into how do I manage this social conversation, having a script prepared or a system. Typical people don't think about these things at all. They wing every social conversation. They ad lib through their life. And many people with autism realize at some point, hey, you mean everybody doesn't do this? I mean, I'm working twice as hard. And why? So to find out that there's a reason, they have a different brain. There's nothing wrong with the brain, but it's in the minority. And anytime you're in a minority, I mean, I'm a white woman, cis het, I'm pretty normal. Except for being a woman can sometimes feel like being a minority. But anytime there's a majority, that is who makes the rules and the expectations. So the majority of people are typical, and they say, you need to make eye contact or I'm going to think you're lying. You need to make the same facial expression I expect or I'm going to think you're a witch. So it's not that there's anything wrong with being autistic. It's just that it's hard to be in the minority when the majority does not even realize that it's a thing.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify for our witchy population out there that Wendela is being very generous and not saying the word bitch on the air, but I'll say it for her. We don't mean that witchiness is bad in any way.
Oh, no. I have nothing against actual witches. I wouldn't want to be prejudiced against them because they are in the minority too. And I forget sometimes the broad category of people, but it's true that there are some words that I look for something else to say instead. And that was one of them. And so thank you for clarifying that, Molly.
I could hear that in the room somewhere.
You know your people.
yeah, for sure. And I think it's really, it sucks that the majority makes the rules in so many different ways that it sucks. And once we have an awareness of that container and how maybe we are playing, like you said, doing double the work just to have a social interaction or do whatever the thing might be, that acknowledgement of I'm not crazy, that this is just a different operating system, the acknowledgement of that can, I think, bring some power. It can bring some like clarity and settle you into it all makes sense now in a way that it feels more frustrating without knowing, I think. Knowing that that's the reason, or that's why that extra work has felt like it's there that whole time.
Yes, I hear that so often from the people that we work with, especially women. They're tired of going to the doctor and saying, I've done all this research and I've thought about myself and I think maybe I'm autistic, and be laughed at. Say, you can't be autistic, you're married, or you can't be autistic, you looked in my eyes, because they just don't know any better. So we really want to hear them and listen to them and give them a proper diagnosis based on the actual diagnostic criteria, not on somebody's idea that if you make eye contact, then you can't be autistic.
Right. And it's a whole spectrum of existence also, right? Do you want to speak to that a little bit? That is so true. Yeah. Yes,
because some people with autism might never learn how to speak using words and might struggle to have any form of communication. Some might always need a lot of care. There's actually 3 levels in the diagnostic criteria. Level 3 is, substantially impaired. And these people will always need a lot of help. They will not be independent. Often they will also have a lot of intellectual disability along with autism. Then there's a level 2, which is moderate support is needed. And these are people who are probably identified in school. And with some support, they can get a job. They can get their own apartment. But they're probably not going to be able to just do that on their own. If nobody steps in to help them, they will just continue living, with their parents and doing the same things they've always done. But with support, they can get out and get their own place. And then the people that come to me, the late diagnosed people, are typically in level 1, which is just called requiring support. Now, it doesn't say level 1, you're smart, so you get nothing. Mm-hmm. Or, you've masked this long, just keep masking. It does say requiring support. And sometimes that support is just understanding, accommodations to be able to go for people who work for someone else, who don't have the gift of entrepreneurship, to be able to tell their boss, I need to communicate by text or email instead of telephone. I'm not going to talk on the phone. Or I need different lighting because this is giving me a migraine every day. Whatever it is, that they could be able to make those accommodations. But the beauty of entrepreneurship is being able to create your space and your environment that supports you. So autistic entrepreneurs, it's like they're living their best life. You get to, as we said, be your own boss and create the way that you want to work and show up in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing to have the freedom and the power to do that. And yeah, to go back to that spectrum, it's like there are so many varying degrees of experience on this planet, and that to take the time and acknowledge, I think I'm somewhere in that I need less support perhaps, but there is neurodivergence in me, without a doubt. There are things that I definitely need to be aware of in how I operate that is different than how some people operate. And the awareness of that means that I get to, communicate my needs when they arise in ways that maybe as a younger person I wasn't willing or able to communicate them, to create a space, create a reality, create a life where I have as much ease as possible. And that is going to be varying degrees for everyone of what you need to become aware of, that your requirements are for your environment, for your relationships, for your level of safety in your life. And I think that alone is a really great thing to keep in mind is, what do I need to be my optimal self? What do I need to really thrive as much as possible? And how can I find the accommodation for that, whether it's me giving it to myself or me finding the support for that in my life? It's a great reminder.
Yeah. It's so important. Yeah. Because even if somebody is not, autistic, doesn't get that diagnosis, there are a lot of people who have some characteristics that they can honor. And, for me, there's a thing called face blindness, which many autistic people have, where they don't necessarily recognize someone. I have a friend whose son, when he was in high school, came home one day and said, my girlfriend isn't in school anymore. She's just gone. I don't know where she is. And there's this girl sitting in her chair who hates me for no reason. I've never met her, but she keeps staring at me like she hates me. It was his girlfriend with a different haircut.
Oh, no.
And he literally did not recognize her. He was in big trouble. I think they broke up. But I have some face blindness. And most of my life, I have been ashamed of it and tried to cover it up. So, I might not recognize somebody from a distance, or when I haven't seen them, even somebody that I'm close to. I've had Lori picking me up at the airport saying, I was right there. Didn't you see me? And I'm like, oh, my glasses, I need new glasses. But it's
yeah.
I did not recognize you. Yeah. When you kids were babies. I remember one time going through a bunch of old family pictures with your mom, my sister. And here's all these baby pictures. I said, oh, who's that one? And she says, that's your daughter. It's oh, yeah, it was just upside down. And now, finally, I'm almost 70, and I can say, you know what? Sometimes I have a little face blindness, and I might not recognize people. It's nothing personal, but I'm not ashamed of it in the way that I used to be. To not recognize a baby picture of your own baby, that's pretty bad.
Well, bad by some, judgmental
Yeah.
standards, but not when you're willing to just acknowledge that your brain works different in that way.
Yeah. My judgmental younger self-judgmental younger self
Yeah.
thought it was pretty bad. But now it's like, oh, well, I never know if, who's who on TV shows that I watch all the time. If somebody else has the same color hair, I ask my kids, they tell me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll say, yeah,
your sister.
when there's two women with the same length of hair, and occasionally I'll say like, I can't, they look the same. They both have the same hair. And they'll say to me, one of them is black. And I just, or, well, it was the only Asian person in that movie. It's like, there was an Asian person in that movie? Sometimes even that, unless it's obvious, if it's a mixed race, I sometimes can't latch onto it. And that's just a neuro difference. It's a different brain. Mm-hmm. But to forgive myself and to just make it a joke when my kids tell me, that one's black, has been a gift of age for me. When I was younger, I didn't forgive myself as much for shortcomings. And I think it's great that your people, the women that you work with, and you are at all ages coming to say, I deserve to love myself. I deserve to be powerful and not pretend that I'm not powerful because people around me might not get it, or, some man might try to mansplain me.
Right. Which they will anyway, but
they will.
That they might, not want to.
But we don't,
because I'm powerful.
We don't have to take it. Yeah. We don't have to take it personally when they do that.
Yeah.
Just like, laugh at them.
So you've written a lot of books on all kinds of topics relating to this. Do you want to tell us about some of your books and how people can go and find them?
Thank you. Well, my first one, when I first retired, it was for teachers. The ABCs of Autism in the Classroom. Because years ago, I'd started my career as a special ed teacher, and I kind of wanted to, my old, more educated self wanted to give tips to my young self about, what I could have done differently. And then as I got away from working with children and more into adults, I wrote Independent Living with Autism, Your Roadmap to Success. Then for my publishers, I co-wrote one for parenting. It's not really my thing anymore. I'm happy to talk to parents, but it's not my specialty. And then Siobhan, your cousin, my daughter, and I co-wrote at the beginning of the pandemic, Homeschooling Autism Style, because all these parents of autistic kids suddenly had their kids at home. Mm-hmm. And she really spearheaded that. Then Recognizing Autism in Women and Girls is like one of my favorites, or that I'm most proud of, because there are so many women out there who are being told you can't be autistic, or you don't look autistic, or, quit making things up. And they're not getting recognized. So I loved writing that book. And now I'm partway through the series. Adulting While Autistic is the series. Dating While Autistic just came out day before yesterday. They wanted it to come out on Valentine's Day. And Relating While Autistic is about couples, married or committed couples where one or the other or both are neurodivergent. And that I turned in, and it'll come out in June. And then I'm right now working on Parenting While Autistic. There are a lot of books for parents parenting autistic children, but not very many where the parent is the one who's autistic. So I'm enjoying that. I wasn't an autistic parent, but I married a man who became an autistic parent, and I've worked with many, many people who are. So that's what I'm up to. And my books, my business website would have a link to my author website. My author website is just my whole name, WendelaWhitcombMarsh.com. And I need to update it because it doesn't have my last couple books on it. And
story of websites, they always need updating.
Yeah, but I have been updating my business one because it's my business. I have employees relying on me now. Yes, so adultautismassessment.com is pretty well updated.
And we will put both of those links in the show notes so you guys can go check out Wendela's books and her business for adult autism assessment. I would say if you're curious at all to see, one of the cool things Wendy and I created was a quiz that you can go and take on adultautismassessment.com. You'll probably find a link there to it. I'm assuming it's there. Yeah.
Yep, it is there. And if you can't find it, then tell me. But it'll say, do you wonder if you might be autistic? It doesn't have a picture.
Yeah.
From the first time we created it, it was a Star Trek. Are you more like Captain Kirk or Bones, Dr. McCoy, or Mr. Spock? But then when I went national and started hiring people and being more of a presence in the world instead of just a little tiny me, I realized I don't have the rights to any of those characters. So now it's a Galaxy Trek, and it's Captain Quirk and, Mr. Block instead of Spock. So it's legally distinct from.
And it's a really fun quiz. I helped create it. I think it's awesome. But if you're just curious, if you're out there listening to this episode and you're like, you know what, let me just go and see, and take that really short quiz and see what you get at the end. And maybe that will let you know if it's a good time to actually get an autism assessment professionally done and see where you fall on that spectrum.
Yeah, and I'm happy to talk to anybody or email with anybody. The other thing is, if you take the quiz, you'll get my newsletter, Neurodivergent News. It only comes out once a month, so you won't be bombarded with, stuff from me. But it does have a lot of articles and links and things about neurodivergency. And if you don't like it, you just unsubscribe. That's always easy to do.
Super easy to do. Awesome. Well, you've shared a lot of wisdom with us on the show today, Wendy, but I always like to ask this one more question, which is, any last words of wisdom you want to share with the world today?
Oh, that is a good one. I think, especially for entrepreneurs, I would say be bold. Go for it. Can I share a quote? I know I've told you this quote before. It's by Goethe, and it is, okay, now I write it in my journal like several times a week. So will I go up on my lines this time? Okay, here it is. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. And that's Goethe. I do too.
Yeah.
I write that every day. I had 40 years of being not at all bold. I was always the scaredy cat, the indoor kid, never learned to ride a bike. And now, as an adult, now that I'm almost 70, I am bold, and I recommend it,
Yeah. For anyone who's just listening to the audio, Wendy has a blue streak of hair. I
am a blue-haired old lady.
Yes, I love that. It's a fun aspect of your boldness. But yeah, that whole quote is so very in line with the sort of ethos of this podcast. So thank you for sharing that. I love that.
That magic. You've got the magic.
Awesome.
And you're sharing it. And thank you for sharing your magic with so many people, Molly.
Thank you for sharing your magic with so many people, Aunt Wendy. Awesome.
Okay.
Well, thanks for being on the show today. And I'll see you soon, I'm sure.
I'm sure. Thank you so much. Wonderful to see you, Mom.
You too. And thank you everyone out there for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, or if you know somebody who might get a lot out of hearing it, share this episode with them, text it to them, or tag them on a post you may have clicked. But whatever happens, as always, keep asking big questions and taking bold action, because you are here for a reason. Bye.